So welcome to our talk. So we'll take you on our journey to automated patch management, which we've implemented with Ansible and Rundeck. But first of all, some introduction on ourselves. So Nicole already introduced us. So my name's Andy or Andreas. You can find me on Twitter on Shakalandi.
Yeah, my name is Rico. I think some of you know me already from some other talks and from some regular conferencing meetings. Yes, also on Twitter. And what we like to show you now is how we did it, how to control our hundreds of machines, our Linux machines in a shop environment by Schwarz IT, which is also not only one shop, but several shop surroundings and environments. And yeah, let's see how we do it.
Okay. So what we're basically doing inside Schwarz IT, you might not find anything on Google on it, so I'll have a slide on it to get you some information. Our department consists of around 50 people currently, and we're hosting the digital stuff for Lidl and Kaufland, which you might know. So currently our biggest applications are the German shop, which is on Lidl.de, the travel portals, which are run in several countries. We also have internationalization on the shops. We are running them in the Netherlands, Belgium, in Czech Republic, Poland, and in Spain. We also have a mobile app, which you might have installed on your mobile phone. It's on iOS available and Android. And it's running in 30 countries. It's using one backend, which we are also hosting. So about Schwarz IT, we are currently around 3,000 employees. Our headquarters is in Weinsberg or in Heilbronn. It's between Stuttgart and Frankfurt. There's also the headquarters of Lidl and Kaufland. We recently announced that we passed the 100 billion sales volume in the last fiscal year. I think it was 2 or 3 days ago. So we have some things to do, and it makes fun. So usually we are not talking about stuff we're doing, but in this case we make an exception for the guys from NETWAYS, of course.
Something for the new frontier.
Yeah. We also have some jobs. Pre-Zero is a new brand we have, where we are recently bought Tönsmeier, which is a recycling company. And I think they have over 2,000 or 3,000 employees as well. And we are sponsoring the Stadium of Hoffenheim with this new brand, which is a Bundesliga soccer club. You might know it's also around in the area of Heilbronn. And they are doing recycling, where we are also doing for the guys from DM, as far as I know. Yes, and we have jobs. You can visit our jobs page on jobs.schwarz. Yes, we also have a top-level domain, which we have to run somehow. So what is this talk about? What the fuck? I told it like that. So in the past, people often were proud on long uptime. So this is a Amazon machine from a friend of mine. And yes, he's still a friend. As you might see, the machine hasn't been rebooted for 1,380 days. Does not make fun. It also runs PHP 5.3, but
and it's still counting, right?
And it's still counting, so it has not been rebooted. So I want to know who I'm talking to or who we're talking to. I would be interested in who of you is cloud only. Nobody. One, okay, that's interesting. Who is on-premise only, so without cloud? Okay, and who is hybrid?
Hybrid guys.
Hybrid.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So it's half-half. And who of you has to patch machines? Okay, that's something everybody has to do.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, welcome to the cloud. Except you're losing serverless, but then somebody else has to patch your servers, as we might know. Okay, so our journey on automated patching. We want to tell you how we've done it, why we've done it, and we'll have a live demo, at least sort of a live demo. Yeah. So why did we spend time on automated patching? Because yeah, patching is a boring task. Nobody wants to do it. It's something you have to do, but it does not make fun. It's a manual process, or it was a manual process in the past. And manual processes are bad, and they are error prone. So maybe Rico does it in another style as I do, and this does not make sense. What's also bad on patching is that usually if you run an online shop, you have to coordinate a maintenance window, or at least a window where you can patch the machines, so that hopefully there is no deployment of your application in the same time, because otherwise things get messy. And of course you need time for patching the machines, because yeah, we are only 6 people currently providing 700 or 800 machines. We don't want to spend that much time on patching.
The classical downtime window, yeah?
Yeah.
When we can have the systems, because there's a reboot necessary and stuff like this. And yeah, maybe also other stuff to do. So yeah, this is always a pain for even coordinated with how many different
yeah, we have different departments.
Do we have?
Arnold knows some of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a lot of customers inside where we have to talk to. And some want to have a Jira ticket, some want to have an email, some want to have a phone call. And this does not make sense. Takes too much time. Okay, what else? Yeah, we want to make security and auditors happy. So we have this thing called ISO, which is our Information Security Officer. It's a team of security officers, obviously. We run qualys and regular scans of the machines and our whole environment. And they often knock on our door and say, hey, there's a new vulnerability. And then we want to say, yeah, we know, we already patched it. So this would be the optimal situation. And we also have regular audits from external companies. They scan our machines or they try to hack stuff. And having a process for automated patching helps there as well. So you might want to have it as well.
The stuff with all the advantages when you run an online shop with the payment stuff in background and something. You have to be as secure as possible, yeah, and even the machines itself have to be secure, not only some firewall or web application firewall perimeters around, but also the machines itself has to be bulletproof, as good as possible.
Yeah, and you might all know something about heartbleed and what else awaits us tomorrow, we don't know. So you want to have a process for emergency patching. So when the ISO knocks at the door and says, hey, there's this vulnerability from this night, please patch it immediately. So you want to have a process, or if in best it would be to have the same process as your normal patching process to make an emergency patching of all your servers. What else? Yeah, you want to have a mature and reliable process. That's what I told you before. So we are 6 guys in our department. And if we wouldn't have a standardized way on patching, everybody will do it on his own style. So somebody will set a downtime in the monitoring. Somebody will make a snapshot of the machine. Sometimes they might forget it because yeah, they got an interruption, and interruptions are always bad. So you shouldn't have to care about this whole things around your patching process. And you, of course, you always want to have the same process and workflow for every patching, and it should be repeatable. And the documentation should be done automatically as well. So if some of the auditors comes and say, hey, when was your last patching? You just show him your automated documentation, because you don't want to patch and then have a manual documentation. Does not make sense. Okay, and basically this is how we do it. So as I said, you'll see it later on in our live demo. We are using Rundeck, which is an open source workflow tool, something like a Control M Lite. There's also a paid version available, I believe, but for us the open source version is completely fine. We started with our automated patching when AWX wasn't there, so which is the open source or upstream project of Ansible Tower. We are now currently looking into it, and it has some pros, some cons, and yeah, we don't want to have a zoo of tools, but we'll see what wins. What is nice on Rundeck is that you can also hand over jobs to other departments without giving them access to machines. So, for example, a restart of a service could be done via an API of Rundeck or something like that. And our Ansible is running in the back, so we have a complete set of Ansible playbooks where we. Who does know Ansible? I believe everybody knows Ansible, right? So okay. So Ansible is something Red Hat has also bought 2 years ago, I believe. It's used for configuration management, but we use it for the automation of our patch management. And we'll show you in a minute why. So we're doing the patching host by host or parallel, depending on what we want to do. So we have a host by host patching for live stuff. So we're doing live patching at least every 4 weeks. And we have a 1 week cycle for all development, testing, and QA systems. So we're patching them usually on the weekend and have an automation there. We then have a 4 week cycle for prod, but we're thinking about having the 1 week cycle for prod in the future as well. Emergency stuff can be patched without prior information. That's what we usually do when we have something like heartbleed. So we just roll out the patches and inform the departments later on. So the first goal would be to have the patch live and then make the information. Okay. If you have any questions, just interrupt me so we don't need to wait later on. So this is how we do it. So basically the basic steps, of course we set a downtime in our monitoring because we don't want to notify our on-call or someone else. Our monitoring tool currently is icinga, so thanks to Rico and the other guys. Important thing is to set a downtime, and if you don't automate that, somebody will forget it for sure.
And somebody will be alarmed.
And somebody will be alarmed, and you don't want to be alarmed on the weekend or during the night if a patching occurs. What else do we do? Of course, we create a VMware snapshot. It's currently our main virtualization layer. We have around 95–96% of machines virtualized, so we try not to use physical hardware because our whole operational process runs around a virtualized environment. This is hard when you talk about big SAP databases consuming much memory and data store, or even paid software where you don't have that much self-developed or possibilities to self-optimize your own code. And we try to make P2V, or physical to virtual migrations wherever possible, because we really rely heavily on the virtualization. So for your automated patching, do your automated snapshot, of course, that you have a rollback mechanism available. What else? Send the Raven, like the Game of Thrones viewers know. Send notifications. So depending on our departments, we have plenty of notification possibilities. So we are heavy users of Rocket Chat, which is also open source. Slack we host ourselves, so we can spam notifications on patching inside Rocket Chat. We send emails, we update Jira tickets. I think Ansible can even send a fax if some of your internal customers want to have it. What we're not doing is automated phone calls, but I believe updating Jira tickets and Rocket Chat email should be enough because there are already too many interruptions. And what's next after the notification? We make some host preparations, so we spend a lot of time in this host preparation stage. We remove load balancer health checks, we deactivate nodes in Apache proxy balancer or in other proxy balancer suites we have, or cluster suites. This all is done in Ansible with Ansible code. We stop services, for example, even Oracle databases, where we then get a switch over to another node, or MySQL Percona cluster. It's better to stop the service first and not do the hard reboot where the service automatically gets stopped. So the handover is a bit easier if you have your hand on stopping the services before the reboot. Yeah, and then it's finally upgrade time, if necessary. So we also check, is the upgrade necessary? And then we'll do the upgrade. If not, we skip it. So because not all, if you do a once a week patching and you're using Red Hat Enterprise 6 or CentOS 6, there's not a patch available anymore once a week. So usually there is one small stuff available, but not every week. So we only patch if necessary, of course. Yeah, and there's also a thing called needs restarting, which you can use in Ansible. There you can check if there are modules or if you upgraded packages inside your machine and that the machine needs restarting. For example, if a new kernel has been installed and you want to have the recent kernel active, because that's also something what makes security happy. Obviously, we always try to reboot a machine in any case, so we have some exceptions to that, because you want to be sure that your stuff comes up automatically in the right order, which might also be a problem when you have external vendor software where you have to stick to a specific restart order in the services. So we have 2 or 3 applications where we have this problem, and then you can also adjust your restart or reboot and take a look at which machine needs to be restarted. So the database should be there before the middleware or the application server. And yeah, that's basically the thing. What we then do, we have a lot of after reboot tasks as well. So for example, we remove old kernels. Qualys is also alarming security if you have an old kernel installed. Ansible can do that as well. So we usually remove we keep the active running kernel and the prior one on the machine, and everyone else we delete automatically because we don't need it. We know always that the recent version from before was active, and so in that case we can remove all the rest. What we also do is we store the patching date of the machine in a file called etc last patching. This is just a timestamp where we write down the patching date. We use it for icinga monitoring as well, so where we can see that our automated patching is working. We have a mod updater. It's currently not live. It's done twice a day. You'll see it later on, where we also have this last patching when you log into your machine. We also use Ansible CMDB, where we're also using last patching so that the manager can go to the CMDB and make a sort on last patching, and then he can see, the patch automation the guys always told me about, is it really working or not? So you can look it up in the CMDB. What we also do is, of course, we need to reactivate the load balancer checks that the machines come back online. We make cleanups on YAM because you don't want to have several hundred servers with stuff in YAM in the YAM cache you don't need. We update a patch list documentation. This is something our departments can check in the browser. What's the state on the machine and which PHP version was installed or which Java version upgrade was installed when. So they can check, hey, my application is not behaving as yesterday. What patches have been installed? They don't need to contact us. They can look it up in the browser, for example, or the auditors as well, and security, of course. What we then do after the patching, we remove also the downtime in the monitoring, because then the server is active again, and if something else goes wrong, we want to be notified. And we remove the VMware snapshot, which is an important thing. You don't want to have old snapshots, but Rico will tell about that. So we have some impediments and recommendations on automated patching.
There are some findings if you build such a solution. Like every time you have to readjust or keep an eye on special things. Things we found out for our environment was, for example, that the deletion, like Andy already said, of the snapshots is important, because they pile up, and maybe also one of the other guys creates a snapshot for some reason, and then it's not clear which is what stage and whatever. So we do it like this, that when we are finished with our patching, just remove it. If everything is fine, nobody needs the snapshot anymore, so go away. The other thing is that there are some hardware servers in our environment that are also patched automatically. They behave a little bit different, like the VMwares, you know, when you reboot a VMware, 3 seconds, so that's 2 pings or something like this, the machine is back online. The hardware takes a little bit more time, like our well-known HP servers, for example. That is my worst-case scenario. I always tell about. They do some initialization. The sea of sensors needs to be initialized. Yeah, it takes time. So also Ansible is waiting then, and where is it? Yeah, and you think, okay, what is it? So that's important. Hardware needs time, so also schedule that, and also leave it or keep an eye on, maybe with a firmware update also on the hardware itself, there's some changes in the behavior. So for the next patch run, it might be important. So maybe if you can test it, for example, do it before the next patch run. So to avoid some stuff you don't want to have, for example, when the developers already in your neck and want to deploy something, yeah, and wait for you to be finished with the patch window, that might cause some trouble. Preload packages, that is also something that is important to do it before, not just when you do some parallel tasks. And the whole farm begins to download every patch, and you know, sometimes it's a little bit more. That takes also time, so you can pre-download it to the machines and then just come up with a patching task and patch it. So that saves saves time, and you have some things you can use the time better for there are some things, even some installations of some kernels sometimes takes a little bit longer. Yeah, the time is better used for that instead of downloading the packages. And maybe the package server is a little bit slow at the moment because you have a bottleneck somewhere in the network. Things you should have an eye on. So, and this hurts us, or sometimes very much, because when there is not enough space in some folders, in the yum folder, for example, yeah, if the package download is not done, yeah, that's something bad. Yeah? And even in the temp, when you install a new kernel, you know, it uses the temp space, and if the temp space is not big enough, it will not do the mkinit, and the machine comes up with a kernel panic. That also happens. So maybe have a look with some pre-tasks, or even do it in the monitoring, that you have the levels adjusted, like that there is enough space. And parallel patching is also important, because when you really do in an environment like we have, when you do patching one by one, yeah, this takes time, and it also Ansible waits for the next host to patch if the other one is coming up and stuff like this. So a parallelization is possible, or has to be done as much as possible. But yes, it depends on how many amount of memory and CPU you have, for example, on your virtual platform. Sometimes it also uses heavily, so it's also a little, feeling how your platform is behaving. So, live demo?
We missed one, obviously, in our handover, unfortunately. I'll just go back.
What the hell?
It's no problem. But it's an important one, so have the fixed time slots thing.
Oh, yes.
But it's
That's important too, yeah.
What do we mean by fixed time slots? So we mentioned before that we have a 4-week cycle, so you can't say your developers we are patching on a 4-week cycle, so they don't know when you patch. So what's a fixed time slot, for example? It's every first Tuesday in the month or every second Thursday, something like that. That's a fixed time slot, and it can be added to a calendar, it can be automated. Every 4 weeks is hard to automate, and it's a different day of the week. Maybe it's on a public holiday or on the weekend, and you don't want to do that. And yeah, that's our...
But besides this, we also have to send out some alertings before, because it's always a big surprise that today is patch day.
Yeah, and we don't patch on Fridays, so that's something you shouldn't do. So
non-patching Friday. Yeah.
Pardon? On the weekend. That's the problem with this e-commerce stuff is that usually your customers are most active on the weekend. So in our case, at least, so our most public days when you're going in the retail store, you're going on Saturday, and if you're buying online, it's usually on Sunday. So we usually have the Sunday and Monday are the crowdest days online for us. So it would be a hard thing to do patching there. And that's why we're doing it on Wednesday or something like that. So, or today, for example. Yep. And that's what we show you now. Or, yeah, so I prepared something. What would the automatic patching be if I would have to start it now? So,
did you already mention what we
yes. So we have a Spanish online shop as well. They are also, it's interesting because they are active in the night. No, that's completely different to the Germans. Germans eat at 6 o'clock, then they shop online, then they go to bed. And the Spanish guys,
the other way around.
They do it the other way around. So they eat at 9 o'clock or something like that. And at 11 o'clock, the traffic increases. So they have a traffic spike in the night. So you can't use that as a patching window. And that's why we decided to do it this morning. I think it's currently running, as you might see here. This is our mod D, where you can see our last patching mod D, which is, so to prove that I'm not lying here. This is a productive machine. You can see it in a minute because I'll tail the varnish log or something like that. It's a web server, and this is our last patching file. It's the 9th of May, so it's last Thursday when the machine was patched last time. And obviously my connection got closed some time ago. So hopefully I can log back in now. Oops, so I'm logged in out of the VPN, 1 second. Okay. So I'm trying to re-log in. Obviously the Wi-Fi is a bit slow. This should work, come on. That's the thing on live demo. So, okay, I'm logged back in. So, the mod D already got updated. As you can see here, it's the 15th, which is obviously today. And we make a cat on last patching. Can you see that? I'll increase the size a bit. So, as you might see, it's the recent date, and the machine is up for 41 minutes now. So we scheduled our patching process on 10:30. It usually takes around 40 minutes or so on the shop. So, of course, when you do it manually, it would be a lot faster. But we don't care how long it takes because it's automated. Nobody has to take care about. So obviously, oh no, this is the application server machine. So I'll now go to the web server. Where's the thing here? So that you can see that I'm not lying. This one. Oops. so that we have some traffic on this machine. Oh, obviously not. Is it a bit slow? Obviously, it's not handling that much traffic currently. I have to check that in a minute. That's the thing on live demo, so it has worked some time ago. So that's what I said, what we're doing with our patch lists. So these are all groups in Ansible, in inventory groups. And we also have a group here for Lidl España, which is Lidl España, of course. And on the bottom of the page, there's the today's date. And then you can it's just a simple yum patch list where you can take a look at, okay, the host has only a glibc update and a CD. So that's not that much. So this can be looked by our developers and auditors as well. So I can also show you on Pingdom that the service is still hopefully alive if there's no other problem. So there was no outage when we patched, or maybe it's still running, so we can check that in Rundeck. So this is the job. I have to relog in. So as you might see over here, this is the job number 29,018. So we scheduled 29,000 jobs in our Rundeck now. And I can take a look at the log output. So this is basically things we do. So you can see this is something like send a message to Rocket Chat. This is the patch list we are generating. And then we're setting the downtime. We're doing this is all the stuff which is handled by environment variables. So there's no Oracle database on that machine, no Oracle listener, no Oracle patch. So everything is skipped. And here we decide, hey, the machine needs restarting. You see it was on 10:31, so it's around 1 hour ago, or 45 minutes.
Quick today, yeah.
Then we restarted the machine, and then we do stuff like a lot of
the cleaning tasks,
clean up tasks. So now I'm interested if this has worked now. So that's, oh, my search got lost. So this is our Greylog. I wanted to check if, obviously the varnish, the logger hasn't come up, so that's not working. Now we have to check that later, so sorry for that. But it has worked in the morning, so and that's what I said. That's our Ansible CMDB, where we can now check if that machine has been patched. So, okay, it hasn't been run. So Ansible CMDB, do you know Ansible CMDB? It's an asynchronous task which is running. So this is running at 12 o'clock again. So it's scanning all your machines inside your Ansible inventory and then generating your CMDB for you, so you don't have to think about manually updating your CMDB. So, and obviously this hasn't done, so it's running at 12 o'clock. Yep. We can now wait 40 minutes and it will be active over here. And then somebody would be able to see it in our CMDB. So I have to check why varnish isn't coming up. So 1 second. So this should work, of course.
And the main thing that is important with that we have no downtime in the shop. So everything is running while the customers can still use the platform. And yeah, you don't have to suffer from a downtime, because that's always a little pain in the ass, because like Andreas said, we have some different behaviors also in the sites or in the countries with using the online shop and using the different platforms. And yeah, to create or to schedule a behavior manually for everything is something at the end you can't do. Yeah. So the findings in our CMDB that there are sometimes some machines you forgot to put in the inventory or something like this, but it's only a handful that are not patched for, let's say, 1 or 2 months. But at the end, also the monitoring is alerting then, so we can have a look for. So, as I said, the main reason is to keep that shop online and not to have to shut it down. So you found it?
Yeah, so the daemon was not running, so you can see this some real-life traffic running on the machine. So we just patched our Spanish online shop machines, including application servers. So you shouldn't see the IP addresses. So now live in this session, and obviously not everything worked out, but that's the thing on a live demo, right? So I'd like to show you, or I would love to show you how this would see in Greylog, because then you can see that one of the web servers was active, and then the second one comes active again, and the first one goes down. But obviously, if the daemon, which is logging JSON files now, it was not running, then the timestamps are messy now. So maybe we'll check that later on. So where's the presentation? This would be our live demo. Most of it worked. So we patched a productive machine now. Yeah, I can show. That's right, yeah. Thanks for that. Hopefully this will work out now.
But Thursday last week, huh?
When was it running? I think it was around, I don't know, I think it was around 10 to 12 or something like that.
We rescheduled this for this week's live demo. Normally it's running on Thursday a little bit later.
Come on, guy. So I have to change this as histogram. This is the problem on VM. This really comes back up very fast.
3 pings left.
So I thought we might see in here a spike somewhere around here. It should be here around. But it's not there, obviously, because the machines are not down for longer than 1 minute, and then you can't see it here. That's the problem. So maybe we migrate it to hardware back again for the demo next time. So
yes, okay.
Yeah, sorry for that. But as you might see, it was online, so everything is great. So do you have any questions? Everything unclear.
Everything unclear.
So.
Fine. Good.
Yeah, there's one in the back. 1 second, Nicole will hand you the microphone.
Hi, I'm interested in how do you handle the application errors that might occur after such a patching. I mean, do the application teams have a regular time slot to take care of those occurrences, or is this?
Look, the story on that is that we usually do the patching of the testing systems way before that, so that the error hopefully occurs in your test environment. That's not always the case when you, for example, you update a Java version and you have some old libraries inside your monolithic application, which we also still have. Then you it might be that that a problem occurs in your production system, and then you have to fix it there. But to be honest, we haven't had. I think I can remember one problem in the last 2 years we had with an application running on a recent package, and then we rolled it back. You have to decide, will I roll back on the snapshot, will I roll back the RPM? So we are, as I mentioned before, we are running Red Hat Enterprise Linux. These packages are usually very good, tested, and you can heavily rely on them. And having this fast cycle helps as well, because as you have seen before, we only exchanged glibc on that machine and nscd, 2 packages, which is not that much. On the other hand, we also ran 250 SAP servers where we don't have the possibility to run it live. So that's why we mentioned the parallel patching. So we have, I think, 4 downtime windows over the weekend. And then you have 300 packages or 400 packages which are going to be installed. And if you then encounter an error, you have a problem, because you have 400 different packages where a problem might occur. So that's also the story behind why we want to have a fast patching cycle, so that the things changing on the machine, it's very few things. So usually that helps as well. So yeah, of course the developers have to take care as well. That's why we notify them, and we try to say them, hey, look at your testing system. When everything works there, usually it works in production as well. So we're happy with having recent versions of everything online, and we would rather do a rollback then and not wait on the go from the developers, because usually they have other things to do. There's another question, yeah?
Just a little question. You talked about your impediments and your requirements for patching. Are these your most painful things when you started this, or have you any other things when you started this process? So, what was the most painful when you started?
The most painful thing was to start. Yeah. To be honest, so that this is something. So the 2 guys who implemented this, they are not there. One is on public holiday. So hi, Ricardo, when you watch this. So we spent a lot of time on that, because we didn't want to have this manual thing. And so we are not a web hoster, for example, although we host web applications. But we have 5 or 6 servers which are similar, and the other ones are differing. So you spend a lot of time in the edge cases. And to polish everything, that it's really possible to run on automatic style. So on the German Lidl side, we have several million visitors, sometimes a day, and we are patching it live, and it works now. Of course, somebody of us is there and knows the patching window, but it's done automatically now as well. And you start with small applications, where you say, hey, we can test the process out, and then you go further on to your top applications, and that's basically it. So one nasty thing was really the thing Rico mentioned, that installing the kernel failed when some user was using /temp, storing some CSV stuff, and then your make init.rd, it fails because it uses /tmp. And Ansible doesn't notice, because the installation of the YAM package, it was done, and it wasn't returned as a failure. So then you have a kernel panic of the machine, and if you have several kernel panics, then yeah, you have to do manual work again, and that's nothing you want to do. Okay. Yep.
So you're talking about like 700-800 servers.
Yeah.
Do you have some kind of the monitoring of the Ansible tasks you are doing kind of patching, so you know which servers could fail or failing during the patch management?
At the moment, we use our Rocket Chat channel. We pump everything in, and also the colleagues, credit, wrote some, what is it called? Some listing stuff, where you see what the Ansible job has done already. Here we had only some 6 or 8 servers. Yeah. We have environments with more servers for one job application. They put out the packages they've already finished and go on with the logging. So if you are really interested, you can see in the backlog of our Rocket Chat channel, or we get also some notifications in between. In the future, yes, you're right. It's also on my list for the icinga 2 migration. What
it's
we have
like if you don't have a logs for some amount of time, you will decide that the server is down, or so like that.
I didn't get the question.
No.
I mean the monitoring stuff, yeah. Then you patch the 700 servers. Okay, you have 50 servers on one type.
Yeah.
And you will patch them.
Yeah.
And some of them will don't go online because of, for
Yeah.
example, that logging
Yeah.
back, and you don't know which one. Then
Yes,
it could be the problem. So
what we currently do is, so we make an add reply in our Rocket chat. So we debug everything there, and you get an add reply for a failed task. So that's the first notification you get, and usually it's very instant. What's not cool on Rundeck is that you don't have a good Ansible callback integration. That's where AWX comes in place, and where we want to use it in the future, so that you make use of the callback functionality and then have icinga checking if everything was green on that task. So this will be something we are currently doing, but we are doing this since 2 years now or so, and so it's same as with an online shop. You're not printing a book. You have to constantly improve on that, but we spend rather time on improving the automated patching than doing it manually again, so we're quite happy with that.
Thank you.
Okay, so another question in the back.
And it's also not a pain point, honestly, because it's normally running, and if you have some findings, even the monitoring has set a downtime, so after the downtime is removed and the system has a problem, you trigger it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the whole cluster is down. So you should have
We have
a
another question in the
breakpoint.
back.
Yeah.
So, did you get chance to look into the Foreman and its integration with the AWX or Ansible?
We also have a Foreman running now, but we're not that happy with. So we don't want to have a zoo of tools, you know, because with 6 guys in the department, you have to choose your tools wisely. So you can't do Ansible, Salt Stack, Puppet, and you can't use Foreman, Satellite, Ansible Tower, and that. So I think at least that's our opinion currently. So, but we'll check it out, of course.
Sure.
Any more questions?
Now you have the chance to ask them. They're still here.
You can also ping us in the break, or if you want. So then that's it.
So thank you.
Thank you very much.